Cool. Welcome back to session 2 of our little jaunt up to Scotland. Um, Before we kick off proper, who wants to give a broad overview of where we got to last session? Go on, Chris. What do you remember from last session?
Oh, so we all got to invest, and what started the investigation pretty sharp. Um, we just went straight to the police, didn't we? We went straight to the cops. Had a chat with the boys in there.
Do you
And
remember what you were investigating?
uh, we're investigating a murder.
A murder.
A murder. That's been a murder. So we're there to investigate that because it's a spooky murder because the guy's head was a couple of feet away from where his body was, and all of his limbs and stuff were all wrong.
His limbs were all wrong.
So
Yeah.
yeah, his
Body
limbs were
shaming
all.
already?
Well, I mean, I if it yeah, it would be body shaming because at a guess it was unintentional. They weren't a fashion choice, so
The
it would be
his
technically body shaming.
his arms were ripped from his sockets, the head half twisted off his body, covered in awful cuts. You'd think someone had been at him with a claymore.
That's kind of a fashion choice.
Which, as we discussed,
Yeah.
is
So I mean, if
The claymore, the sword,
yeah,
not the claymore, the mine, because those didn't exist in 1920s. Yes, correct.
yeah,
the victim was Donald McCall. The current suspect is Jamie McLeod, if I've got those the right way around on my notes.
You
And
have.
It was mostly suspect because everyone else was accounted for, and it was a small rural place, and they were all at a party. And suspect went treasure hunting or urbexing in a ruined house nearby, which is where the guy was found.
Correct.
Just say ahead of time, our physicist will be delivered about 7:45, but it'll just mean me nipping off screen for 2 minutes.
Yeah, cool, no worries. Sorry, Nick, you were going to say.
The investigator of the case was Inspector Charles Sinclair. Said he's got 2 character witnesses who will testify that McLeod was definitely capable of something like this, and that's the Reverend McCallan and Dr. McBride.
That's correct, yes.
And we have yet to speak to either of those people.
Correct.
But so far, we have spoken to Jamie, and he seemed quite a gentle
When McLeod
sort.
wanted to go treasure hunting in that house, the Reverend told him not to go, thus providing someone who would have known he was there, potentially.
Yeah, he'd mentioned to the Reverend that he was thinking about going, and the Reverend had warned him against it.
But he wasn't specific about the dates of like when he was
And I
planning
drew
to
cute
visit.
sugar, but
Sorry, so you're correct in that the Reverend didn't know he was specifically going at that specific time. Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Most, by the sound of it.
Sorry.
But he sounded like the person who knew most about it.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
We plied the suspect gin to no avail. We also plied the Sergeant Lorimer with gin. We discovered that he doesn't like
So taste.
Yes.
I wasn't impressed.
He didn't like that, no. Yeah, you tracked him down at the pub later on and got him drunk, which is where you got the additional details about the body from.
Well, from him and from the coroner.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, and we know that the major landowner in the area as a farmer called McIntyre. And I can't remember how he related to other people, but I seem to remember there was some kind of connection there.
People, the McLeod boy was meant to be working on his farm, watching the sheep at the time.
Oh yes.
Is what the connection was.
And then Stanley got the sergeant drunk, and we all went to bed.
Yes, you did. So you're all fairly inebriated, and so if you really want to do something during the night, then you can have a stab at it. But you're probably all going to sleep fairly
Yeah,
fairly
I thought we
solidly.
finished with us all going to bed anyway. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
took the report with me for a little nighttime reading
I do
and such.
think I'll have gotten too mashed, but I'll still be.
Partaking.
You can be functional the next day unless you really want to do yourself an injury. Cool. It's the next morning. What would you like to do?
First,
Go down to breakfast. Yep.
Breakfast, because then we could all have a chat.
Yeah, you can go down have breakfast.
And before Miss Ridley, laying out her clothes for the day, etc.
washing boot.
What have you requested for
So I might.
Don't make me know fashion.
Go on, Chris.
I might suggest. Once I see the others at breakfast, I might suggest. Suppose everybody would like to head off to what's the village name of the village again?
Strathmorn is the name of the village.
Strathmorn, that's it. Of course, it's because it's the name of the idiot. Okay, so I suppose everyone wants to head off to Strathmorn today, pretty sharpish. I might like to take a quick trip to the library to see if I can find out who currently owns the manor
Manor?
house. Who was the family that died out that owned the manor again? I don't seem
The
to have written that down.
McMorn family.
McMorn, yeah.
McMorn. So yes, I would like to quickly dash out. So and then maybe because I'd imagine we'd be having breakfast around 8 o'clock or something. People in the 20s got up early, didn't they?
Sure. Sure. 8 o'clock's a normal time to get up, Chris. Take
It was a different time.
back when people got up as crazy early as 8 o'clock in the morning. Lunatics.
Look, I wouldn't have breakfast at 8 o'clock. That's what I'm saying. Well, all right, 7. When are we having breakfast?
Cool.
Everybody-
No, you can have breakfast at 7, 8, whenever you like. You're gonna go to the library and do some research on.
Yeah, but I'd also like to make it a quick stop if everybody, because if nobody has essentially. Would anybody else like to research anything this morning? If they wouldn't, I will make my trip. I'll only stop by the library for an hour. Oh, you do? Sweet.
You have a coroner to speak to.
Ah, yes, of course, the coroner. We were going to speak to the coroner as
I
well.
thought we
weren't
already spoke to the coroner. Or did we just see the coroner's report?
The report.
Just the coroner's report, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You got the coroner's report. The report's fairly detailed, mainly because of the unusualness of the murder. You can go and speak to him, but in terms of like a police investigation, all of the information should be in there, is how it's meant to work.
There may always be things that he wasn't comfortable putting to paper.
Very true.
But I suppose he's not going anywhere. He'll be there when we come back.
I
Essentially,
remind to also speak to the Reverend McAllen.
So the Reverend is in Strathmorn.
Oh, okay.
essentially the thrust of my dear Miss Ridley and Stanley is that we perhaps should set a time that we catch the train to meet each other while we do some more short research before heading off to Strathmore. Because if we are going to go to Strathmore today, we probably want to go bright and early and make the most of it.
Have a car.
Yes, you hired a
I
car.
believe you had arranged a car for us.
You hired a car, which is good because there isn't a train to Strathmorn. And Strathmorn is about an hour's drive out of Inverness, so you can go back and forth. It's not like you need to leave super early to get the whole of the day there or anything like that. But it is an hour-ish each way, so it's not super easy.
The weather like today.
The weather is, what did I say? It was spring, so it's probably fairly bright, but still a little chilly.
If I might suggest that we hasten to Strathmore relatively early in the day while it's out.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna sort of ascertain. So perhaps we should organize return to the hotel to leave for Strathmore at a particular time before I quickly head off to the library and Miss Ridley and I assume Mr. Rummage head off to the coroner and Stanley going with either party perhaps.
So to go to the library and to research something like current ownership of some land or anything like that is not straightforward or quick, and will probably take you about 4 hours or so of like being in the library, finding the right books, tracing bills of sale, that kind of stuff.
Could you
Sorry,
make the request so the information's ready when we come back?
Is there a town clerk or similar that we could employ?
there's not that service already set up in a place as small as Inverness. London and Edinburgh would have companies that offer that kind of service. You could try and hire someone.
Go and have a word with the manager of the hotel. See if there's anyone on staff that would be has enough education to do that for us and would want to make a bit of extra money.
If
Essentially,
that's what you want to do.
Yeah, what I imagine I guess that I had a very specific idea for how I forgot my character's name. How
Will.
William would Bill.
Bill.
Yeah, how Bill would actually go like specifically he was thinking about going straight to the like because all public matters are recorded and such and stuff something like the will of the McMorn family would be a matter of public record, so I would simply go to and if I didn't find anything then I would just meet the others essentially, so it was more like I was going to go quick. If I couldn't find the information I'd come back rather than a 4-hour research session.
Sure. So, what is the specific thing that you want to look up?
Well, I want to look who the manor passed to. So obviously the family line died out. So the last living member of the family would have had a will. I want to see to who the lands were left to in that will. And then that will that should take like an hour, and then I'd come back.
So
join the others
it
for the
would
next
be
day.
quite quick and easy if you were looking for specific named persons will. But what you're trying to find is you have to go back far enough on the family tree that you find the whole
no,
house on the will, because if it's been left to like all of the children, then there's parts of the houses and some like the house might have been left to one child and not the other, and
but the last owner of McMorn House would have been relatively well-known information, right? Like it wouldn't be like if it's a family that died out, they didn't have these children to pass it off onto, right? Like
so In Strathmorn, yes, you could probably get the information of the names of the last people who lived there. You don't currently have that.
What, as in, like, because surely would, like, is it not a matter of public record to store things in, like, so the will of the family line's will, for
Yes.
example, would it not just be in chronological order? So I would just look up the last living McMorn, because if a family line dies out, the last living McMorn is going to be the last person to have that house.
You can't. It's not. They don't have a database. They have a matter of lives of a record of deaths and births and wills, and so you need
But it's
to.
still catalogued, isn't it? Like, I know there's no
It's
database,
catalogued
but
by date, but also if you don't know the date that they died, you don't know which year to even look at, let alone which month or day.
sure.
If you had the information of named person, date they died, and wanted their will, yes, it would be quick, but you need to gather that information first. Which you
Sure.
could
All right.
do which you could do in about 4 hours potentially, depending on how your library use check goes.
Sure. All right. Well, sod that then. Yeah. So, in which case, do you guys want to go talk to the coroner, or shall we just bugger off to Strathmore and get it over and done with?
It's not going anywhere, I'm sure. He'll be back later.
Off to Strathmore then after a hearty breakfast.
Sounds
Yeah.
good to me.
We'll prepare the car.
Okay.
Marvelous.
Um.
God bless you, Rummage. Glad you're with us.
Miss Ridley will
um.
come downstairs dressed in a fashionable equivalent of what possibly she thinks country folk wear. They'll be tweed. Play at Rummage and go. Where's the feather?
I thought that if it rained, it might. Mr. Rummage reached into a pocket and produced a long pheasant feather, long-sufferingly.
Miss Ridley tucks it into her hat at a rakish angle.
He goes around and opens the passenger door for her, quite pointedly.
She makes to go to the driver's door, but he cuts her off. He looks resigned to this. This seems like a microcosm of something that's happened many times before.
There's a long practice waltz.
Very nice. Mr. Rummage, do you then get in the driver's seat,
Of course.
leaving Bill, and Mr. Chevenix Norton, which I can never pronounce, to get in the back. What kind of luggage have you all brought?
I think,
the
well,
drive
because
to
I.
Strathmore, or in the hotel.
So if you've brought luggage and you're leaving it in the hotel, you absolutely can keep renting those rooms, and you can leave luggage there and go on like a day trip to Strathmore. There is a hotel there, so you can go there with all of your luggage, depending on how much you've brought. It's up to you guys whether you want to base yourselves in Strathmore or Inverness.
I think we'll have left the bulk of our luggage here on the understand if we need it, we'll just call and get somebody to send it on.
Sure.
But I would pack at least one night's change of clothes for Miss Ridley as standard. Camping chairs, umbrella, picnic basket, first aid kit.
Just a short overnight bag, yeah? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm
Cool.
taking my pistol and my hip flask tucked away.
Just a short overnight trip, yeah? Wonderful,
Yes.
wonderful.
You said the nerve tonic, that was it, nerve tonic.
Yes.
The nerve tonic's in my garter, and if anyone has the nerve to get it there, they probably don't need it.
Bill, what are you bringing?
I'm probably bringing mostly myself. I've got like a field lab kit sort of thing for testing anything we might find, but there's not, as if we're not planning on staying in Strathmore, then I would expect to be coming back to perform any tests on any things we might find. So I'm probably just myself, what I have in my person. So I'd know.
I don't need
what
literally like a list of items. Just like if you're just going with whatever you've got in your pockets, that's fine.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm just myself.
Invested with pixels.
sorry.
I don't know if it shows up for everyone, but for the sake of the stream, you might want to unplug and plug in your camera again, Chris, because you are under a swarm of pixels at the moment.
It looks fine to me. Let me check the stream.
Looks fine to me.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
but
assume it's just us.
I will take my pistol tucked away surreptitiously up to my person.
Cool. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm not gonna punish you like saying, "Oh, I light my cigarette." But like, "Oh, well, you didn't say you bring your lighter, so no, 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 no." We're not gonna play that game because it's real boring.
No, sweet. So
And
yeah,
also, it's the 1920s, so.
And also, it's the 1920s. So of course, you carried a lighter and cigarettes. Yeah. Mr. Chevenix Norton, how light or heavy are you traveling?
I think I'd have with me a change of clothes, some good walking boots, and my banjolele.
Of course.
Banjalele!
Small overnight bag, right? Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. You then head off. The drive. There is a quote unquote main road to Strathmorn. It never quite goes below double width, but it's a bit close in places. You drive through a bit of woodland before breaking out again into a more open kind of landscape as you drive through fields. I shared a little map in the chat.
Yep.
Are you pulling up anywhere specific, Mr. Rumage?
Oh, where would people like to alight?
There is a hotel, I believe.
Bring it up again.
Yeah, I was just gonna say if we're parking somewhere, we may as well park at the hotel, which probably has most mod cons that we might want.
I'm just opening the original so we can get it.
As far as mod cons go in the 1920s.
Oh, this
Running
wasn't it.
water, they might have running water. That'd be nice.
There's a shop and a hotel. What's it called?
Well, near the shop and the hotel would seem the logical place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right,
you
so-
can park up anywhere around there.
Somewhere where this car isn't going to get battered by every passing car.
Yeah, you can pull off, so you're well off the road. There aren't a lot of cars, to be honest, in the village. There's probably only, how big is it? It's pretty small. There's probably only one or two other cars, even in the whole village.
Just to check, are we aware of the? Have we been given the information as to who lives in each of the houses? Because I see it's got names on these.
You haven't, but that would not be hard to find and isn't spoilery in any way. So rather than taking the time to scrub it off, I just left it on.
No worries.
So, what did everybody want to do once we were here?
Well, I should rather like to talk to the Reverend McAllen.
Oh yeah.
He seems to have popped up
And it
a
might
few
be good to
times
take
in
to
people's.
the villages. There must be somewhere that a lot of people congregate. Looks from the pub to the church to the pub to the church. Lingers settling down.
There's a well-worn track between them.
Yes, so from what you've heard from the police investigator, you know that at the time of the murder, everyone was socializing at the hotel. So that's between the hotel and the church. Are probably the two main places of socialization in the village.
And for my part, I'd like to see this mysterious man. Maybe we could get someone to show us where the body was found, at least. Maybe relevant.
Well,
You
so
could also ask
why
someone to
don't
do that.
Stanley and I shall go talk to the Reverend, and Mr. Armiger and Miss Ridley can ingratiate themselves with the locals. How does that sound?
Capital.
Very good. I've
Marvelous.
never
Let's,
been a religious note myself.
So 2 of you are going to speak to the Reverend, and 2 of you speak to the
pub in general.
To the
Correct.
hotel.
hotel. Yeah.
Hotel, I assume.
The hotel is the only place to get alcohol here. And so there is a bar in there. So labelled on the map there, the Kirk is the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
right.
If that wasn't obvious. Um,
Correct.
I don't know if it's literally just Scottish for church or if it has
It
a
is.
slightly different definition. Or yeah, okay, cool. Thank you, real life folklorist.
Every day is a school day.
Yeah. Cool. Let's do the team going to speak to the Reverend first. Then, you, if you want to have done, you can have driven through town before like turning around and pulling back up. So you would have seen the church because it's pretty obvious. You would have driven past it. So if you want to go straight up to the church, you can.
I
Yeah,
will
that's-
follow your lead, Stanley.
I'm really trying not to burp on stream, which is carry on.
You're so gross.
I am.
Perfect, Stanley, my boy. Shall we? What do you reckon first? Do we try the church or do we try the Reverend's homestead?
well, I suppose it rather depends on what time it is.
So you left pretty sharpish, so it's probably like late, if not mid-morning still.
On what day? Like what day of the week?
On a random day of the week generator, tap, 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 tap. Let's say Thursday.
In which case, I'll probably be at the church.
Greetings,
You
lead on.
you can walk up to the church, and you will see that the door is open. This is where I don't know enough about different denominational habits to know where in the church you would go to find a church of this a priest of this denomination. But we're gonna blag it. It's fine.
It'll probably just be like a small vestry out back.
Sure. He'll be around. You'll be able to find him in the church. There will be, you would probably find someone. No, you may not actually. You'll be able to find him by walking around the church. He'll be in there somewhere. Let's say he is setting up candles around one of the bits of the church. Correct terminology. Bits of a church.
Cool. So, so we'll just come up nice and quiet and respectfully. I beg your pardon. I assume you must be Reverend McAllen.
He turns around. You can see that he is a man in his, if you had to guess, maybe 50s, maybe early 50s. He has very short hair, quite a full, like he's not losing it. It's quite, he's not getting much of a receding hairline, but cut short. And when he speaks, he's quite softly spoken, but softly in a way that you can tell he's speaking softly. He doesn't come across as meek at all. He says, "Good morning. How can I help you?"
Stanley Shevnik Norton. Pleasure to meet you.
A pleasure, my
This is
son.
my
William
associate,
Thatcher. How do you do?
Mr. William Thatcher.
A pleasure, my son. Welcome.
Call me Bill, please.
Bill, of course.
We were just wondering whether we could detain you for a moment to discuss the recent business with the unfortunate Mr. McCall. God rest his.
At the mention of the name, he makes a sign of the cross and says, "Certainly, can I ask what your interest would be in this horrible matter?"
We've been engaged by
The National Laboratory.
sorry, I'm just trying.
Yeah, the
checking my notes,
National
actually.
Laboratory of
So we
Psychical
were-
Research is the actual answer. Whether you want
Yeah.
to give him that or not is up to you.
Remind me, actually, how did they get hold of this case? Did Sinclair get in touch with them? Or do we not know?
So all you know about their involvement is in that newspaper article, which suggests that they heard about it because someone is claiming that it was ghosts, and so they want to fund an investigation because they think it might be, and they would like some proof.
Oh wow! I didn't realize that. So these guys believes in ghosts. The National Laboratory of Psychical whatever.
They wouldn't ever say we agree and we think that ghosts exist, but they are interested in obtaining evidence of the paranormal or of human abilities that haven't yet been identified by science. So they put a bit of a sciencey spin on it, but basically yes.
Sure, interesting.
So
I
they
just
presumably
assumed it was the
something of a money spinner for what's the agency? Hudson and Brand.
Hudson and Brand, yeah. You guys do a lot of this work of people being like, someone said it was ghosts, so it must be ghosts. We're going to pay some people to get some evidence, and then you come along and be like, boom, it was not a ghost.
Right. So yeah, I assumed the National Laboratory were on the same page as Hudson and Brand on the disproving, but the National Laboratory are on they want evidence, and Hudson and Brand are like, no,
Well,
ghosts.
they want the truth, but they believe that the truth is that there's more to ghosts and psychic powers and the paranormal. Yes.
Sure.
You're
Sweet.
both ostensibly searching from the truth. You're just coming from slightly different camps of belief of what the truth will be when you find it.
Sure.
Sorry.
So I guess I'll say we've been engaged to assist Inspector Sinclair in investigating this matter.
Nice.
And we've sorry. Go on.
Sorry, no, go on. If you were going to keep talking.
We've already spoken with young Mr. McLeod. And
he makes the sign of the cross again at McLeod's name.
And yes, as we've heard mention of your good self a couple of times so far, and in the course of our inquiries, we thought it would be best to come to the horse's mouth, as it were. Would you be able to spare us a minute or two, just to share your thoughts on the matter and your?
I have already spoken to the police. They have taken my statement.
Yes, we've already made contact with Inspector Sinclair and Sergeant Lorimer, who I believe you will have met. But yes, we just wanted to just make our own inquiries to ensure that nothing has been overlooked. Many hands make light work and all that.
He nods and asks you to follow him, and he leads you through the back into, sure, there's a proper name for it, but his office.
The vestry.
The vestry, yeah. That. It's an office. He the choffice, yeah. He sits down behind his desk, and he says, "Would you like some water?"
Yes, that'd be lovely. Thank you. Bill?
Please, yes, thank you.
He pours you both and himself a glass of water and sits down behind his desk. He motions to the seats and says, "Please,
Go ahead
ask
and sit
away."
down. So, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just run us through your involvement with this whole situation. How did you first hear of the how did you first hear of the murder?
When the townsfolk came back into town from having finding the body, um, the village was in uproar. I believe I was one of the first people that they came to tell. Um, Someone went to the hotel to use their telephone, um, but also some of the villagers came to inform myself as well.
And what was your first thought on hearing of this?
I prayed for the soul of the crap. I've forgotten his name now. McCall.
McCall?
McCall. Yes. At the at the time, um, we didn't know that what McLeod had done. So I began um, consoling my flock. Some of them were in quite a severe state of shock, having seen what had happened to that man.
And you mentioned that at this point you had no reason to believe Mr. McLeod had been involved in this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I understand that he'd previously come to talk to you regarding his financial troubles and his intentions to go hunting for the fabled treasure of the McMorn family.
He had um, he had mentioned that he was considering it. I warned him not to. That that house is a place of the devil, and I warned him not to go. Um, but evidently he did not heed my warnings.
Knowing him as you did prior to all of this, would you say that Mr. McLeod is a godly man?
Mr. McLeod is he is a man who does not, how can I say this? He is a daydreamer. He is lazy. He is, I would have described him as fearful of God, but evidently not. He does not. He lacks focus and discipline.
One of the lilies of the field, shall we say?
He smiles and nods.
Inspector Sinclair led us to believe that you You and also, I believe, the village doctor. Is it Dr. McBride? I believe.
Dr. McBride is the village doctor. Yes.
Inspector Sinclair intimated to us that you had presented yourself as a character witness to attest that Mr. McLeod was a person capable of a crime of this degree of savage. Is that correct?
Given the events leading up to what occurred, that is correct.
What events are those, precisely?
Mr. McLeod, a man not of strong convictions or religious fervour, entered the abode of Satan and spent the night there. Evidently, he was possessed by the devil, which gave him the motivation and ability to cause this kind of destruction upon a human.
So it was simply the act of voluntarily spending a night in this house that you feel was the tipping point between a gentle, if somewhat idle daydreamer and a savage murderer.
I don't know if I would say spending the night there, visiting the place. To willingly enter the house of Satan is to walk into his arms, and you give unto him your mortal body and your immortal soul.
Has the McMorn estate always been such a home of depravity?
It has been in the time that I've known it. I don't know
The
when.
McMorns.
The McMorns have been gone for over 100 years. I don't know what it was like back then, obviously.
How long have you been here, Reverend?
I have lived in this village since I became a priest
Which was
a long time ago.
well, he's 50. How many years ago did he become a priest?
Are you directly asking him that, or
Yeah.
or you
And,
asking
and when
me?
did you? No, yeah, and I'm so his answer was just a long time ago.
Yeah, he doesn't want to tell you how old he is.
When did you become a priest, Reverend? Or Reverend? When did you become a Reverend?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm using priest accurately either.
No.
He
Yeah.
he says he left to go to the priest school. What's the name, Nick?
Yep.
Seminary?
Seminary. Thank you. Knew there was a
Probably
name.
a bit Catholic for this, but
He's
anyway, theological
he's
college, probably.
Presbyterian, I want
Yeah.
to say. So whatever they use for that.
Whatever they do.
Yeah. He went after school. Is what he says. So inferring from that, he left at like whenever you do like when was it then, like 14, 16, something like that. So he has lived in this village at least since his 20s, so probably about 30 years ish.
30 odd years. Yeah.
Give or take. Yeah.
And yeah. What was the reason for you being assigned to this particular church? Are you from the area? Are you and your family from the area? Did you ask for your posting here? How did you come to end up to being in such a small village?
It was God's will. If you'd like to take some kind of check to know about how that works, I'm not even sure what would
Well,
be appropriate there.
yeah, I guess I now don't understand why he's being cagey about simple church matters of being assigned a church when you pass. Well,
You can,
that's why I'm now getting super sus. Because, like, it's like
if you want, you can take a psychology roll to try and infer his intentions.
yeah, because I guess I haven't got spot hidden or
Psychology is what you
no.
use to like read people.
Yes, so I have no psychology. So let's see how this goes.
Yeah, so you're just on base 10. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Chevenix Norton, you can as well if you so desire.
Might as well.
Yeah, because now I'm super sus because he's being super cagey for absolutely no reason. Oh,
Oh,
how do we bloody?
that's the second time that I've rolled 41 on psychology. I'm going to burn another luck just because why not? Cool. Okay.
Oh
that
yeah,
has-
89. I'm fucking miles away.
You're miles away.
I've just passed then.
Cool.
Yeah.
Bill, he's being super fucking cagey. Like, what the shit is he hiding? Mr. Chevenix Norton, he's not being cagey. Like, he doesn't really want to tell you how old he is because he's a man in his 50s. And genuinely, he seems like a believer, and a lot of these ways that these things are assigned is either random or political or whatever. And there's not necessarily anything to be cagey about. A lot of people do believe it's the will of God where they get put because it's kind of random once the politics is sorted out. There's also
It's like a
potentially
medical matter.
yeah. There's also potentially a part of me being a bit vague where I don't know how that would have been done. So he's maybe being a little more vague than he otherwise would be, but I don't think a lot. Like he would answer that question with it was God's will because he genuinely believes it was.
Sure. Okay. So I guess I'd probably just continue with that line of questioning. I get because I'd then just be like, "Sir, are you from the area? Where are you from originally?"
um,
Because now you just made me super sus. So I'm like, where are you from?
so he explains that his family are from Scotland, from a different part of Scotland. He goes on to explain that you don't really get placed in the town that you're from because there's too many historical and familial connections. You tend to get placed in an area relatively close by, but amongst strangers, so that you can be a father to them. You're not having to be a father to your own uncle.
Sure. Um, you've cut out, Adam.
Have
I
I?
can't hear you.
Test, test,
Oh no,
test.
there you're back now.
No, still there.
Cool.
Yeah, I didn't hear you for some reason. So then, so I'd probably go on to ask. So you called the McMoore Manor a house of You're not from around here. You've been here a few decades. What has happened for you to address the manor in such a way?
If you, there is an evil presence lurking there, and if you are a man of God and you are faithful, you will find that place abhorrent and repellent. Even if you are not, you will still feel that in your soul, but you will be able to more. You'll be more conscious of what that is, if you are a man of God.
Do you know in your years of serving this parish, have people? Well, I know that the stories of the hidden treasure in the McMorn Manor is the talk of the town, right?
He nods
So
quite
surely,
grimly.
so surely in this time there must have been plenty of plenty of fortune hunters heading up there to see what they could find. No,
The stories of treasure are children's stories. Very few adults put any stock behind it. Additionally, I have spent my time here preaching to the people not to go to that place, and any sensible people heed my warning.
but surely in what 20, 30 years there must have been a few prodigal sheep that went tiptoeing up that way.
How many people genuinely try to chase down the end of a rainbow to find the gold at the end? It's a children's story.
So not even children have been up there.
Not to my knowledge.
So, to your understanding, Mr. MacLeod is the first person to have set foot in that place for 20 or 30 years.
And Mr. McCall, yes.
What do you suppose took Mr. McCall up there?
I could not say. He was known around these parts for poaching. It could have been that. I don't know. That is now between him and God.
Did you know Mr. McCall?
Yes, I knew everyone here. I
Was he
know
a-
everyone here. That's a really weird phrasing for him to use. He knows everyone here.
I know everyone.
Was he a pious man?
He was a drinker, but he attended church, and he was active within the community.
So perhaps a man caught between hell and the angels.
He had his demons to fight, certainly. We'll
Do you sup-
we'll
do you
carry
suppose
this
he-
on for a few minutes, guys, and then just to let Kath and Rich eat some food, and then I'll switch over to them.
Sorry, okay.
Unless you're wrapped up, that's fine.
There was something
yeah,
I was
yeah.
working my way towards. I've lost track of it.
Sorry.
Guilty went to... That's all right.
No, I feel like you're. If we, do you reckon we'll stay, continuing talking to the Reverend once we come back from Miss Ridley and Mr. Rummage, or shall we leave and sort of head somewhere else?
I feel like I'm nearly done. I've got a vague sense there's something like one more thing that I was going to.
I felt like
one
you
more
had.
thread I was going to
I
pull
felt like
at.
you had something cooking. Yeah.
Sorry, I knocked you off your train of thought. My bad.
That's okay. That's okay.
You were asking about the characters of the two people and what brought them there,
Yes.
and why he thought it was the house of the devil.
Yes. So I suppose the most significant character in this whole drama is one that we haven't yet inquired about, and one with whom I'm sure you have a great, if reluctant, familiarity.
He nods sagely
That
and
is
says, "Yes, God."
quite the opposite, I'm afraid. The diabolic influence of this house,
He nods.
aside from the aside from the general sense of ill omen around the premises, what is it that's giving you such a steadfast conviction in the devilish nature of this place?
If you are asking me for evidence that will pass in your courts, then I have none.
Let's leave the courts to one side for a moment. Let's talk about what you've seen, what you believe.
I, as a man of God and as a man of the church, I know that that place is the house of the devil. I know this in my heart and because of my faith. I have not seen anything, and I pray that that my faith is never tested in that way.
So God in his infinite wisdom never saw fit to provide you a sign to ensure that his flock was kept within his light, with such an evil overhanging them.
He raises a very skeptical eyebrow. I did not require any more from God. I know when I am in God's light and when I am not, and that house, it has been taken over.
Had you heard anything from your predecessor?
I did not know him. My understanding is that there was a gap between him and myself. I don't know any more than that.
And you'd had no warning from the church before your assignment to this parish.
That's correct.
Very well. Bill, anything?
No, nothing at all. Thank you for your time, Reverend.
You're very welcome. Anything I
Thank
can
you
do to
so
help the
much.
police.
Hope it hasn't been too distressing for you talking about such dark occurrences.
Thank you. My faith is strong and it protects me.
So as we're walking out to Stanley, I'm like, that guy's fucking sus, right? That guy, oh my god, he's no good. He's being super cagey for absolutely no reason. I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. I got no time for it. Like, he may have absolutely nothing to do with the murder, but that guy, for a reverend, is a closed book, and I don't like it.
Cool.
Letter?
As you two are walking out, I will leave you there. If Rich and Kath, you're okay to come back on mic.
We are.
Cool. You were going to the hotel, is that right?
We are, yes.
Cool. Let me.
Tall stories.
Heading in for the bar. Whatever it passes for a bar.
Let me quickly scroll to that bit of the book. Where is it? Reverend. Dead guy. Where's the... I'm losing my mind. I'm absolutely losing my mind. Where's the name of the person who runs the hotel? Oh my god, it's in a different section, that's why. Cool. You walk
That rule for the
into...
keeper suffering.
Suffering from sanity loss himself. Yeah, I crit failed that max anti damage. Do not pass go. Do not collect £200. You walk into the hotel. There's a little kind of reception desk, and then just past that is the bar. In what is it? It's Thursday morning. There's no one in the bar, but there is a bell on the bar.
Disappointing. Maybe they're not cosmopolitan as the ways I'm used to, but well, there'll be someone working here. But ding.
After a little while, a woman in her late 30s, early 40s comes down. She has long curly hair, and she is absolutely beaming, ear to ear. She comes down and says, "Hello there, how can I help you?"
It's a long journey with a nice, refreshing cup of tea. Wouldn't you, Mr. Rummage?
That would be very acceptable, ma'am. And I believe we also wanted to stock up with some beverages, Jen. And we'll look along for a bottle of something nice that I can buy several of and take out to the car. I'm hoping the sight of a posh person carrying crates of wine out to their car will entice more locals in to see who's spending the big money.
Right, okay. You will, unless you carry a lot of cash on you, you probably won't have the cash. But if you roll a successful credit check, she'll be able to take credit.
Over to you, Kev.
I think that would be me. Hang on.
Okay, let me take the plate off you.
Yes, that's out.
Just Control V.
Okay, that doesn't work. It's
Wrong one.
sorry, I don't understand.
I saved the dice rolls in the.
Okay, but I don't know my thing. I'm rolling.
Now juggle the plates as well.
Okay.
There you go.
Roll 100.
Yeah, I think he's past that.
Okay, yes. Really super duper extra burst. Do I get to take a book?
Cool. Okay. She looks quite confused and then like real happy that you're making such a big order. She so are you ordering like literally like 12 bottles of wine?
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm gonna knock back an eyelid. I'm sure he knows what he's doing.
She will she says I'll make you the teas and then while you sit I'll bring the wine up from the cellar for you.
Is this like a one-person establishment, or is there other staff?
You haven't seen anyone else. So she goes away and a few minutes later comes back with 2 teas, which she puts on the bar for you, and then hurries away again. After a little while, she comes hoofing back up with this crate. Um, she's obviously quite strong. And actually, now you're looking at her, you think maybe she's actually a bit older and just looks fairly young for her age. But she puts the crate of wines on the bar. And tells you the total, which I'm absolutely not gonna even attempt to ballpark what that would be in that money.
I'll take the crate straight out to the car, and I'll spend some time out there, sort of seating it in the
Rearranging.
rack,
Sure,
the car, and being obvious.
sure. Mr. Rummage, are you writing a check from Miss Ridley's checkbook, or Miss Ridley, are you writing the check?
I think you probably write for yourself.
Yeah, probably.
She thanks you for the check, and puts it in the register. Is there anything else I can get you, miss?
I think we're alright for supplies. I was just a bit curious. So we've come down to look into an unfortunate happening that happened here. I've heard lots of lurid stories about your manor house. So do tell me, what's the truth of it?
She will launch into a quite rambling story about what happened. She will quite frequently, when I say rambling, it will be to the extent of, well, so and so and so and so were walking through the woods, and oh, didn't you know that she used to date such and such back when they were in school, and he's now living in the next village over because the breakup was so nasty, and his new wife's old daughter from her past marriage is a doctor, don't you know? And like real tangent. Like you are getting about 30 years worth of gossip, like condensed down in just like a verbal stream.
Interest. I will do my best to.
She will pretty much keep this up for a while. Mr. Rummage, you are loading stuff into the car. I assume you brought the car round to the hotel.
Yes, we were
Yeah.
parking near the hotel and shop there.
Yeah, cool. There are one or two people about, but it's the middle of the day, so if most people would be like working on the farms or that kind of thing. So there's not a whole load of people about, but you definitely get some looks from the people, mainly women, that you see around town, in the
Well,
village.
Anyway,
Um,
if any come over to talk to me, then I will definitely engage in conversation, but it'd be a bit weird to go, "Come talk to me."
Yes, yeah. No, you definitely get some people like dead on staring at you as you walk past, but no one comes over to talk to you.
Alright, okay.
Right, I will. I don't know the names of anyone because Richard's moved.
As you go back inside, the woman who has introduced herself as Miss Maureen McPherson, and you now know a lot about her life, Miss Ridley. She has talked about her two sons, Ian and Douglas, who have left the village for their education. Ian is a doctor in Melbourne, and Douglas is an engineer in Toronto. Miss McPherson is very worried about all of the young people who are leaving the Highlands for big cities or the colonies. She talks about how it's a terrible shame that people won't grow up here anymore. There's not a lot of work going around for those who stay, even. She talks about how Strathmore as a village has shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. But there are still like large numbers of English tourists flocking to the area. If that was more stable rather than seasonal, she would employ a lot of people here at the hotel. But instead, she has to take on temporary work in the summer, and she can't afford to keep those workers during the winter because the tourism dies off, which is terrible. It's wicked that the land around here has been given over to deer and grouse rather than being worked by the farmers like it did in her grandfather's time. And that's just a result of all of the young people leaving and the economic effects of the area.
I mentioned of her grandfather's time to try and steer back without seeming like belligerent. I'm quite happy to listen to her, but
Uh-huh.
friendly way. To the manor house.
Sure, she starts talking about Mr. McCall and what a great man he was. She tells about how he was a champion caber tosser, He would always win the local fetes all around. He would travel around to the different fetes, and he was the best in the Highlands. It's just a shame how much he drunk. All of the men in this village are terrible. What with the distillery just round the corner. Only ever half of their output ever actually gets bottled and ends up leaving the village. The men around here drink so much.
Towards the church. Oh, I imagine the father's not very happy about that.
She will scoff a little bit at that. And mention that the where is it? The distillery owner is the brother of the Reverend.
Mm-hmm.
Let me double check that. I'm sure that's right. Where's the thing? Distillery owner.
I mean, I thought the Reverend wasn't from around these parts.
But he might be from like a few villages over.
Yeah, that's what he said. Is he wasn't from this village. I'm doubting
You
myself
told me
now.
he's from another part of Scotland, implying much further away.
Those were his words. Yes. Where the?
See, he's up to no good. You were right. Always embarrassed about,
But also,
Yes.
at the very least, family catch-ups must be quite fraught.
Yes, Angus
Clearly,
McCallan.
teetotal.
Angus
Angus.
McCallan is the owner of the distillery and brother of the minister.
Right. About this time, I think it's when I'll be coming in from the car. Assuming a pause as I enter. Truthfully, might I inquire as to the status of our wager?
Raise an eyebrow.
Oh, forgive me, I should explain. You may have seen the reports of the unfortunate happening in some of the papers. It suggested that some local spectre or spirit was responsible. And I have to confess I am deeply skeptical myself in these matters. This was something the papers invented. Miss Ridley, much more open-minded.
I know how I do like a spooky story.
She insisted that we wager as to whether there was anything behind this beyond the wanderings of a bored journalist's pen.
Rain pounding on the shutters, the thunder and the lightning. I do put joy in my little fantasies.
Miss McPherson looks at you, Mr. Rummage, in kind of like a mock sadness, and she says, "Well, I'm very sorry, Mr. Rummage, but I must confirm that the boy MacLeod was possessed by the devil, and that's what happened. What caused this horrible thing to happen."
Do tell me more.
Well, you would have to speak to the Reverend for that, I'm afraid. I'm not very learned in these matters, but he says that the house is the house of Satan, and we aren't to go up there for exactly this reason. He was right, and of course he would be. He is the word of God.
Is this something common?
Well, no one ever goes up there because they heed his warnings. So luckily, no.
If you were not possessed by the devil, how would such a small, slight young man be able to take out a champion caber tosser?
Exactly.
About your expertise on the physique of caber tossers, Miss Ridley.
Miss McPherson will heartily laugh at that, like a big old full belly chuckle. She will then carry on talking about real innocuous kind of local gossip is the word I was looking for.
We'll occasionally drop things in to try and nudge her back towards local ghost stories and something. But if she's not biting, then
I will try and play, the intrigued and excited person who wants to know about the history and so and Why is the manor empty? Is it because the devils? We'll try and work back to what happened in the past.
Sure. So she will talk about the MacLeod family, about how the the family line was strong. The McMahon family, sorry, and the obviously she didn't live through it. But she will talk like almost as if they were just other people at the village and kind of gossip in that way.
This time in history.
This is what we want from her. This is
um,
No, we'll throw you out.
So from her kind of rambling, I will skim down the actual salient facts that you're able to get out of that, for the sake of my own sanity. Um,
She's not old. She's like in her 40s.
you think she's maybe you originally thought she was late 30s, early 40s. You think maybe now a little bit older than that, possibly. She's talked about her adult children, so
She's been very prejudiced and judgmental.
yeah, fair. She will mention Alex McMahon, who set out to travel Europe to further his education. But during the originally he set out just to travel Europe, but the wars that were breaking out in Europe at the time. So this is the early 1800s. He travelled much further than he planned to, in order to escape that. He returned. When did he return? A couple of years later, and then he ended up murdering his father, Gordon.
Raising some intrigue now.
He this wasn't found out until later that he had murdered him, so he became the lord in the manor. Sorry, laird, not lord.
Nefarious circumstances.
And his sister Moira, eloped with someone else before he got back. That's probably the only things that sound like actual facts and not absolute make believe.
Is there, when she talks about the house, is there any indication to show that anyone goes exploring it, or do they all keep away from, based on what she said?
As far as you can tell, the assertion that no one goes there is true. Certainly, as far as she believes that. She mentions that. What does she mention? That her grandfather, Archie McPhee, was the minister in the village at the time. And she seems very, very proud of this, and mentions that his diary from that time is now kept in Inverness Library. She says, like, beaming with pride. She. Oh, you also get some other little bits and pieces. She keeps talking about how sad the decline of the family is, and how shortly after then the village itself began to decline as well. she also talks about that Gordon McMahon was buried in the family vault at the manor. It's probably the only useful stuff you get from her.
Does she suggest about the haunting that it's Gordon or that it's Alex or?
No, she's convinced that it is the devil. She probably hypothesizes that Alex brought the devil back with him.
Well, duty free, you gotta go.
Yeah, the devil is a specific type of Polish vodka. No, so because of all of the strange and exotic places that he visited.
Right. And you two were going to be coming over to the hotel afternoon?
Yes, yeah, or yeah, I certainly was going to come back to meet you guys at the hotel. Yeah, because we would have said we're going to obviously see the Reverend and come back to the hotel and see what you guys are.
I get the feeling that you will interrupt her flow at some point, that she's not going to wrap up.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah,
She will literally talk all day if you let her.
I'm perfectly happy to carry on with that just while we're waiting for the others.
Cool.
Yeah, I assume we turn up to just seeing this lady monologuing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Acting and so on, and taking an interest and asking questions and so on. I've got good social stats.
Yeah, sure. And getting that information will have required a fair amount of steering and pointing back onto the track as well, for sure.
I think I'll have actually started clearing away the tea service, washing up, and basically she can continue talking.
She probably would have done. She would have said. She would have, as you started clearing it up. She said, "Oh, don't worry about that, love. I'll get it." And then just carried on talking. And as you cleared it away. I'm gonna take 5 seconds to get some water. Top up because I'm very thirsty because I'm drinking red wine. Do we want more than just a few seconds to get a top up?
I'm good. So
Cool.
yeah, a few seconds.
Yeah, cool. Give me a few seconds and then we'll come back, and we'll chat about where you want to go next. Cool. Cool. There we go. Yeah. You are all back in the hotel.
Yeah. Just so I can write it down. What was the name? Was it the hotel lady's
Grandfather.
her grandfather was the Reverend
Reverend
when
Archie McPhee.
Reverend McPhee. Yeah, so because he's got the one whose diary is now in the Inverness Library.
Yep.
That's the one, yes.
Nice. I want to get all up in that guy's business. I also tell you guys, I think the Reverend's fucking dodgy. Like, this guy's got something to hide, man. He's just being super cagey about where he's from, how long he's been here for. Super weird guy. Like, really easy information to find out, and he just won't tell me. It's weird.
I think our boy Bill got a little bit spooked by him. Honestly, I think he's just a little bit cagey about too much. Yes, he's a
I will also
he's
make the
strange one.
point that the murderer is quite small and slight, or the alleged murderer, whereas the victim was Kadath. Therefore, it seems a bit of an physically mismatch.
Christ alive. So yes, as for Mr. McLeod, I suppose unless we are considering actual demonic possession as an option here, it does seem a little bit thin, doesn't it? Especially as talking to Reverend McCallum, it seemed like his only justification for standing as a character witness against McLeod was the sheer fact that he went up to the house that the Reverend so firmly believes is the seat of all evil in Strathmorn.
I'm really considering that. I haven't met a demon yet. Believe me, I've learned. The devil is an excuse for
I mean,
people to do things they're ashamed of.
It does certainly cast a poor light on their accusations if they are basing their evidence primarily on the fact that he was the only physical person present,
They knew.
but are also supposing that a non-physical, incorporeal force strengthened him. One wonders why then, if we are to accept such a force that exists, that it is necessary for it to have a human agent as well. It seems to me that either a mortal human person, normal stock, was responsible, in which case it was highly unlikely to be the very frail suspect they have, or if we are entertaining the unnatural forces, then there is no need for his suspicion to fall on him in that case. Either way, it seems a very odd chain of logic.
well, I mean, it's not such a stretch. Looking at these kind of stories, there are a lot of instances of old wives' tales about possession and the like, and these otherworldly powers and entities needing some kind of human participation to do their infernal deeds. So it's not that far outside the usual fare of
Perhaps I am
this kind
being
of story.
unfair to it does strike me that they are more keen to believe in this bizarre explanation. That feels more credible to them than that it may have just been an agency outside the boundaries of their village that they were unaware of, such as another person.
It does seem a bit of a stretch. Even
I suppose they're not very used to visitors around here.
In any regard, We are a portion basing a great deal upon hearsay. Am I to assume that you would wish to see things with your own eyes and hear your own ears, rather than the intermediaries of locals?
Do you mean the house?
I will prepare the car.
I was just
I was
about
just
to
thinking it's
suggest that.
about time for a little day trip into the belly of the beast.
Go see the house of the devil in the cold light of day.
It'd be more
What do you
atmospheric.
suppose is the proper etiquette when if you encounter the devil? How do you address him?
You
Uh,
do the impression you
Your
have to
worship.
duel him with a musical instrument, don't you?
Oh god.
I'm on the lookout, like such and such is meant to be a duke of hell, so you'd address him as your grace or whatever. She probably knows that, even though I don't. But and probably go off on a frivolous tangent.
I believe the preferred method for addressing the devil is over one's shoulder whilst exercising an expeditious retreat.
Run
Well said, Mr. Rummage.
away.
Very wise, Rummage, very wise.
Um, you probably don't even need to get in the car if you don't especially want to.
I would suggest that even if they want to take the car, I think I will walk up.
Sure.
I think
I'll join you.
it has the umbrellas, camping chairs, picnic baskets, etc.
And the cursed house.
Of course we are.
um,
So yes, I'll walk up. I'll try and hump it up.
Honestly,
Circle around to the part where, like, if the murder happened out the front of the house, I will approach the manor from the front of the house, or if it
sure.
happened in the back, I'll circle around and then approach the house from the back. So I'll approach the house from a
Upset.
distance, so I get a good look at the ground and everything else that's around in that direction.
Sure. So
Out of the village. So how do I stumble?
as you walk up from the road, then the first thing you see are some. The entire manor is almost blocked from your view by what you can see when you get closer is a complete circle of very tall, very black trees that are they're not so close together that you can't see through them, but from a distance it's hard to see the manor itself.
So, coming back to my query, if the dead man had been outside the manor, how easy would it have been to see from the road?
So not very. I believe the police inspector mentioned to you that some of the village folk were cutting through on their way back from, I can't remember what he said now, somewhere. And it would make sense, like that is a reasonable way to cutting through here would take time off of their journey. So, but yes, you wouldn't see it from the road. It's maybe like it's a walk up the driveway. Then you get to the ring of trees, and then through the ring of trees you see the manor itself. The manor itself was built in the mid 17th century, which is during a time when Scotland was very politically unstable, and it looks like more like a castle, like a small, obviously, but a castle, and looks designed for defense. The main door is flanked by a tower to cover the approach, and the windows are quite narrow. You can see from the outside. As you get to the front door, the whole door is missing. There's wreckage around, some of which looks like it might have once been a door. If take a spot hidden for me.
Mm. And the other thing I'll be looking for as well is on the grounds whether there's when people tend to take the same path, it leaves a bit of a sort of gap in the grass and so on.
A game trail or such.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we can work on whether it's people or.
Seriously.
God
Yeah.
damn it! I'm rolling so high. I got 87 for my spot
28.
hidden.
Tick the box. Did you tick the box?
I haven't yet, so I'm just doing my. Didn't pass.
Then if you.
You want to do your ticking?
Mr. Chevenix Norton, how did your spot check go?
Oh, sorry.
That's right. You don't have to take it, but I assume you're looking around the same as everyone else.
Might as well. 56. I'm guessing that's
No,
not
it doesn't.
great.
I think it's not a thing you can
What's
improve.
the default for spot hidden? I got 45. No.
Mechanically, Adam, how
Nothing.
does this work? Because I think if I didn't find anything, say like I roll badly, but obviously that means I don't find any. Do I then? Because I think I'd probably check again if I didn't find anything, but I don't know mechanically whether that needs to be like in an hour's time, 2 hours, tomorrow, like how.
Sure. So if I just ask you for a spot check, then there's not a lot you can do with that. If you
No, that's fine. I mean, I guess the question is how long is it before I can? Do I need to like essentially say take me out of the everything for the next hour so that I can?
so there
do a more
isn't
thorough reset, or like
there isn't a time limit, but if you ask to do something, fail, and then want to try again, the mechanic is that you push that roll, and what you do is you describe what you are doing differently to try and achieve the same end, and you get to roll again. If you fail, there is more danger or something is at risk more when you do that. The given example is if you're trying to break down a door and you take a strength check, fail, and then you try again by throwing all of your weight behind it, the risk is that you will break your shoulder, dislocate your arm, something like that if you fail the roll. So you can search the outside area if you want. Um, the risk could be something like you lose track of time scouring the whole grounds, and actually it's afternoon, like the sun is setting by the time you really realize that you haven't actually gone in the house yet, or something like that. Maybe you injure
Sure.
yourself like trying to climb over a wall or something, or to see what's the other side or something like that.
Without you.
Well, I guess my.
Sorry, Rich, that was very quiet. What did you say?
Really, the risk is we'll eat the entire picnic without you.
Oh yes, you'll be out of a lunch.
Heaven forfend. Can't possibly go without lunch. So well, I guess so. Like character motivation wise, my main reason for coming up to the manor house was to inspect the crime scene. So I wouldn't. Essentially, I'd just be checked. Like whereas before, I guess we were walking towards the manor house in case I spotted anything on the way there. But then upon reaching the point of the crime scene, I would then make a very detailed and thorough search of that specific area.
Sure.
But if you don't think that counts for another role, then no worries. But yeah, certainly for
So
the point of view of what my character is doing. That
so I asked you for a spot hidden. You don't know what that's for. So if you would like to now search for the area where the you think the crime scene might have been, you can describe doing that. I wouldn't assume that that's what I was making you roll for just because I asked for a spot hidden. Does that make sense?
yeah, sure. I guess it's because I said earlier that I was gonna approach from the direction of the
Sure.
crime scene that I assumed it tied in with that. But yes, obviously, mainly.
Cool. You can have a look around. Give me another spot hidden. And this is just to if you fail, you'll still be able to find it. It'll just take you longer.
Sure. Oh, wait, hang on.
I was busy
Oh, that
myself.
worked as well. 51, pass.
Cool. So it takes you about once you get to the front door, like maybe 20 minutes of searching around because it's not obvious. It's been a few days. But you do find a patch of the grass outside where it's darker and looks a bit disturbed. That you think
I
is.
just assumed I'd be able to identify it pretty easily from the coroner's report, as I studied that pretty.
So you got the rough area where it was, but it's been a few days since the body's been removed, and so it's not obvious. Like there's not a lot of stuff there.
Sure.
Tried to do a chalk outline, but the locals ate it.
Doesn't work so well on grass either.
So yeah, I then make I guess I'd probably still actually have the coroner's report on me. So I'm trying to map the scene to the report. I'm looking around. I'm looking how far away it is from the house, how far away it is from the trees. I'm looking to see if there's perhaps any debris that was left behind that was missed by the police that I might want to take for any samples of anything.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there isn't a lot. There is a darkening on the ground, which is the residue of the blood that hasn't been washed away. There is disturbance in the kind of ground. It's kind of hard to tell where, like, this lawn hasn't been maintained for a long time, so it's kind of hard to tell what's just that and if any of it is like actual anything else, I guess. But it looks like there's not really tracks, but there are large areas of disturbance to the lawn, if that makes sense. It's not very far from the house. What else? There's not really anything around that you can distinguish from general rubble that seems to be everywhere. That's kind of it. There's not really a lot there.
Sure. In which case, I'd probably just keep having a little wander around and keep an eye on the rest of the team to make sure I keep them within eye shot and earshot or whatever, and just keep wandering around, keep having a look, but also keep an eye on the guys. If they go in, I'll follow. If everyone's milling around outside looking for stuff, then I'll continue searching.
Sure, cool. What is everyone else doing?
I'm going to stick my head around the door, well, round into the door, and have a peep inside. I'm not going to head off on my own yet.
Just to probably, I believe, actually, you did pass your spot hidden.
Yeah, but I assume that that's being taken into account.
Yes, of course. Yeah, sorry, I kind of took over.
Oh, sorry, I missed that you passed your spot hidden as well. My apologies.
Okay, jamming this one.
That's fine. Sorry, it's when two people are sending audio at the same time, it gets a bit muffled. If you think I've forgotten something or missed something, do shout, because I might have done.
Stay quiet about it and hold it as a grudge forever.
Fine, that's also cool. You also identified the area where the body was found, and so are you looking? So who's looking in the house? Who's looking at around the grounds?
Well, initially, when we were in the grounds,
Uh-huh.
I wanted to see if there were like regularly worn paths.
Sorry, yes, that's what you were looking for. There are not really. You pass your spot hidden, so you can probably identify like a few animal tracks. And there are signs of you're not really sure what it's indicative of, but you can see some of the large disturbances that Bill found. Kind of look like maybe they could be tracks, but the animal would have to be huge, and it wouldn't really have a footprint in the way they're just like patches of disturbance, which doesn't really make sense.
Does a thoroughfare every Sunday or anything?
No, no. There's a lot of weeds around, growing up the side of the house as well as like in the grounds. So when I say like you can see some animal tracks, it's like areas through the weeds that where like a little rabbit run is or something like that.
But not human-sized.
You certainly can't see any signs of regular human traffic. You do find what looks like it was probably a stables. The main thing that makes you think that is that inside are the bones of two horses, or some remnants of some bones.
I'll point it out to the others and remark how strange it is. They would have just been left here to die.
And also, you find the family crypt, which the door is completely not there anymore, like shattered and broken.
Oh, nothing ever good happens in a crypt.
I'm not going to blunder off into my own in the dark. No,
Do you search all the way around the house, or are you just searching out front?
I eventually would if no one else, if everyone looks like they're staying outside, I eventually would get around the house.
I'll probably tag along with you, but I wouldn't necessarily do it.
Okay,
I'm inside, but I'm not going to rush on my own either.
sure. The As you go round the back, so as you're going in, there's a tower to the right hand side of the door, and then as you go round clockwise, there's a tower on the far corner. So as you're looking at it, the far left, and closest right corner both have towers. Otherwise, it's a rectangle. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So as you go around,
Saying far right is not a good idea.
Aw.
shush. In my brain, hang on. Far left, closest right.
I meant
Corner.
just the influence of raising one hand and talking about the far right.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that.
There's a clip to take out of context.
Gonna get myself banned from Twitch just for that snippet. Keep a clawed hand. It's fine. As you go around, and get to the back bit of that tower that's sticking out, there's another door which looks like it may have been the kitchen, like the servants' entrance in through the back, and that's also destroyed and broken.
Quick question about the house, like the architecture of it in general. This being kind of a little bit more sort of like sturdily built to be almost like a little defensible castle thing. Does it also have any bits of kind of heraldic stuff like set over the lintel of the door or anything? Just wondering if you could just kind of do a history check or something, just to get a sense of what the McMorns felt they were all about. Like, what was how did they present themselves to the world?
It looks like there might have been. It's quite hard to make out. Like any kind of fine detail has been long ago damaged. But yes, it looks like there may have been in the past.
We'll have a look at the debris from the doors. Doors that are pretty much missing everywhere. Does this look to have just rotted down? Or does this actually look to have had some sort of catastrophic damage? I mean, whatever's left of the metalwork, is that split or twisted in any way? Or
Sure.
fallen?
Give me a spot hidden. And which door are you looking at? The main door or the kitchen door?
That I believe is a pass by.
A lot. Or some.
Yeah, pass by 4.
And you're looking at the front door.
Front door, yeah. The front door.
Yeah, it looks like it certainly could have been forced. You find some bits of metal that look like they've been twisted. It's kind of hard to be definitely certain because it's so rusted and old, but certainly possibly is what I'll give you.
I'd probably do the same for the back door as well, because the back door.
For the
I'd
kitchen
probably
door?
more immediately just look for what looks to be the kitchen door. I guess I was thinking more about whether it looked like it was recent, as if the McLeod boy had broken in this way, or whether it's been broken for a very long.
Neither of them look recent.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's.
If you still want to give me a spot hidden for the kitchen door, then you can.
May as well, but yeah, that was like.
I think while they're doing that, I might just have a little bit of a turn around the grounds just to kind of get a sense of like given that this has been abandoned for such a long time, like what the natural world's been doing around it. Like, is there a sign of like, I don't know, like rabbit warrens and fox sets and things like badger sets and things like that? Like, have the animals kind of moved in and taken advantage of all this good hiding space?
Yeah, so Miss Ridley has pointed out some rabbit runs through the undergrowth. Are you looking for anything specific? Like, are you checking to see if anything's weird? Or are you just checking for the presence of life and animals?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think I have reason to look for anything weird.
Sure.
I'm just kind of looking to see if there's evidence of something living here. Like, I don't know.
There's definitely
I suppose maybe like wildcats or something.
So weeds are growing, and there is definitely evidence of at least rabbits. Give me a what's the thing I'm looking for? Like,
natural world?
Yeah, natural. Is it natural history? Natural world. Yeah, natural world.
38, just pass.
Yeah, you can probably find some evidence of some other local wildlife, foxes, some bird droppings, that kind of thing.
But nothing bigger than fox size.
No, not really. And it would be unusual to get like any of the larger predators like this close to a village.
Yeah.
Like, you're not far from the village at all.
I passed my spot hidden for the kitchen.
Cool. You. Where are we? You go to look at the door a bit closer. But what jumps out at you is some footsteps in the dust inside the house.
Do I draw any conclusions in terms of like they look like McLeod's footsteps? Are they big enough or small enough, or perhaps someone else's footsteps? Because that would be even more surprising if they were someone others than McLeod's.
There are definitely some, like, it's not one track. So give me a track roll.
Christ, track. I don't have any in that. Is that a thing? What's track?
If you don't have any, your track will be 10%.
Absolutely not.
Was that a failed roll?
Oh, Big failed roll.
Big fail.
I've got some natural world, but I guess it's a different thing.
Different thing, yeah. So you can't tell exactly like how many people or really much information from them, but you can see that it's definitely more than just one person going in and one person coming out.
And can I take any inference of how recent?
Um, they look fairly recent in that you can still see footsteps in the dust. Like if it was more than if it was more than a few months, like it's open to the natural elements, so too much wind and rain would have blown them away. So probably more recent than 2 weeks or so. Yeah.
Sure, I'd probably beckon Miss Ridley over. Miss Ridley, come see what you think of this. We've got a lot of tracks in the dust here. I'm not sure if not to infer anything, but my tracking skills are next to none. I don't know if you've got some experience with this from hunting game or the like.
Slightly. Not quite my wheelhouse, I'm afraid.
I didn't want to assume, so I thought I'd point it out anyway.
Can we actually see where they lead? You said it wasn't a clear track, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Well, at least we know it's not been entirely deserted, but we didn't know that.
And certainly a couple of footsteps, so maybe even McCall made his way in here. Maybe it was McCall and McLeod, not just McLeod.
Could have been it could have been. Wait, which one's which? Sorry. It could have been the victim wondering.
Yeah, the victim was McCall. So
Sorry, yeah, it could have been It could have been Mr. McLeod wandering backwards and forwards. He did say he spends quite a lot of time exploring.
Yes.
Here's a question: why did he sleep in the house overnight when he could have gone home?
It's not a far walk, is it? I did find that odd myself.
Much further away than it is in reality.
With all
Question
these
for Monday,
doors knocked
but
in, can't have given him much shelter.
no, and it didn't sound
A
very
windy night like that.
comforting. What he said.
Assuming we've all rendezvoused around the back at this point. I would also posit that given the apparent vandalism that's been done to the doors of this place, that the prohibitions against local visiting here have certainly not always been quite as stringent as the lovely lady at the hotel would have us believe.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that McCall and McLeod are the first people in 2-3 decades to have been up here, as the Reverend suggested.
The house has been abandoned a lot longer. He has been reverend, although she has been alive. I would say.
The doors may well have been bashed in 75 years ago. They could have happened almost immediately after anything. It's been abandoned for a century, I believe.
Oh, I suppose so.
But
Maybe there was a treasure. Maybe someone has had it away many, many decades ago. Well, who wants to come in?
We'll immediately offer her a flashlight.
Thank you, Mr. Rummage.
what time is it?
It's probably coming up to like midday.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, cool. Because I know I'll be eager to get back to Invent in time to catch the library still open. So yeah, midday. That's yes. I would certainly be looking at my watch often to make sure to be able to bug the other guys to get back so we can get back so I can get to the library.
Sure.
Anything else? But yeah, if it's midday, then yeah, let's cruise on in.
My social skills are pretty good, so I probably
Super
would pick up on it. I just probably wouldn't say anything because spooky house to explore.
Yeah, spooky house.
There's not much to do for fun around this.
Superstition or not, and superstition or not, this isn't really a place that you want to be in the dark.
No.
Yes. No, certainly midday I think is the perfect time to be exploring a spook. Let's put our best foot forward, shall we?
But I don't want one anyway.
Sure. Cool. Are you going in through the kitchen?
Since that's where we happen to be, then quite likely, yes.
Cool.
Yeah, because I think I'd automatically want to try, even though my tracking is all. My instinct would be to try and follow some footsteps.
Sure. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
really blatant ones on the floor. I'll try not to tread in them, but I'm not much of a
Yeah,
tracker.
I got an 86 for my track. If you want to have fun with that, Adam.
Mind you're tracking your own footprints. You go around in circles forever. Your adventure ends here.
You just forever circle round and round and round and round.
That's Winnie the Pooh story, I'm sure.
Or you go too far and you find yourself at a branch of Shoe Zone.
Right, I'm gonna
Walk straight off the balcony for no reason.
chuck a quick map in the chat just so that we're all clear on the layout, because the layout is a little strange inside. Apologies to people watching this video later or watching on stream, but hopefully it will become clear later on.
Running ahead, insanely into the darkness. Well, she's got a flashlight, but we'll probably stride or dance ahead quite enthusiastically.
Sure.
Making sure we're not.
So the door, as you go in the door and search the room that you walk into, it becomes clear as you search it that this definitely was a kitchen. It's pretty ransacked. There's not a lot here other than the surfaces, and even those are pretty rotted and worn away. But there's place for like a stove, a fire, and that kind of stuff.
Are there signs of human action and value, or could it all be age and wildlife?
You can see that there are human footsteps in the dust, yes.
Well,
I'll stroll a little bit further in.
That we work our way towards the main entrance, as if we assume that the police's suppositions are correct, whoever entered the rear door would have had to make their way to the front entrance in order to rendezvous with the deceased Mr.
Sure. So as you walk out of the kitchen, you pass on your left a spiral staircase going up, and then there you come to the main door on your left and two other doors on your right. Obviously, I use the term door loosely because the main door isn't there, and in fact there aren't any doors on the other two doorways either. Pretty much anything that's wooden has rotted and is quite significantly degraded.
When we spoke to the suspect, he said there wasn't anywhere he wasn't able to get to in the house, like no obstructions or anything. So I'll keep an eye for anything that contradicts that, just in case.
Sure. Are you, Mr. Rummage, you going out the front door?
I will look around the hall. I won't actually go out the door. No,
Sure.
I'll look to see if there's any signs, as if someone was hurled out, convenient bloody handprints.
The last message is written in blood.
So you don't see like a large disturbance in the dust that would indicate like a body being dragged or anything like that. As you're looking around, you do look into the storeroom, which is the first door on your right. And you can see that that contains quite a few very old, very empty coffins, which have been smashed open.
Oh, very quickly, Adam. Was the McColl's body, was it found out the front or the back of the house? I don't think I clarified.
At the front.
Out the front. Cool.
Yep.
Okay, carry on as you were.
What's the feeling place? Without any sort of mystical ability whatsoever.
It feels cold in the way that those old, like thick stone houses kind of do. You
Carbon monoxide.
There's nothing like that, and
They're just hallucinating it.
Yeah.
you probably feel a little bit spooked, but probably because of what you've been told rather than anything you can discern. Although seeing a room of empty, smashed open coffins maybe makes you think twice about that.
I will point it out to them.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'll probably be like leading it away fairly. How strange.
I think I'll hear that from the other room. Like, coffins, you say? I'll come through to the other room.
Yeah, we've got
So
the hall.
can I make like an anthropology roll to see if I know of any like customs to do with coffins from Scotland?
Any reason they'd be here?
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Yes.
Fuck. 98.
You
Mistake.
um
How you managed to rebuild it?
you don't know, but you know that if there was, you probably wouldn't know about it. Like, you are aware that the death rites and customs of 16th, 17th century Scotland are not an area that you're super familiar with.
Well,
Can someone who's in that room give me a natural world or any kind of science, really?
naturalist.
I'll roll a chemistry on that bad boy. If chemistry fits.
Let me try that again.
Broke it.
There we go.
Oh my
55.
god, yes.
Yeah, that's pass for Kath.
60 is a pass for me on chemistry because I got 70 on chemistry.
Nice.
No.
You
Yeah, roll it.
Might as well.
anyone who passed can tell that the smashed lids to the coffins have been smashed significantly more recently than any of the doors or anything else.
I was going to ask before, do the lids have name plaque?
They do not.
Well, it looks like not everyone's avoiding the house.
Does it look like the coffins, like something was actually taken out of the coffins? Like, is there anything left behind in a coffin that suggests that it wasn't just empty?
They are definitely empty now. It's hard to tell if give me a biology roll.
Like, explore it, and that doesn't really do anything.
So if the coffins
Alas, no biology, no dice.
You're not sure if you'd be able to tell if there was evidence there.
Sure.
So if you came up here searching for treasure and you thought you fancied your chances of robbing graves, okay, fair enough. But why would you drag the coffins out of the family crypt into the reception room?
Maybe they were here to begin with. I look around, see if there's anything else in the room to show that it might be like a collection of antiquities or any kind. Is there anything else in here?
The room is pretty much otherwise empty. There is like a couple of what used to be wooden boxes and barrels and stuff, but now are completely smashed, and look like they were smashed a long time ago. If you had to guess from the remnants of here, it was a storage room of some kind.
How many coffins are there?
There are at least 10, that kind of ballpark.
And do they all look to be roughly the same age?
As far as you can tell, in that they are quite old, yes.
Well, I found the crypt earlier, so maybe we can take a look in afterwards. Check to see if there are any coffins in there. This might be some kind of curio or antiquity or something.
Certainly indicates a strange preparation to have such a large number of coffins on standby at the same time.
Can't argue with that.
I mean, there is a degree of pessimism which comes further than you travel, but
Everyone give me a track test.
Mm,
Nope.
Note for me. Why am I rolling again?
Nope.
Are there drag marks behind the coffins, by the way?
There are not.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Whether it looks like they've been dragged there or whether they've been sat there for a while.
So they've evidently been there longer than the footprints, in that there aren't tracks in the dust, and they look quite old. Like, they don't look like what your characters would consider modern.
Sure.
Well, should we see what else this creepy place has to offer?
Without wishing to be too on the nose about it, I'm dying to see the crypt.
Well, it's just round there, and investigate the direction I found it in.
It might be best to do that while it's daylight and we do not have to rely solely upon the flashlight.
Well, leads on.
I'll head on down there.
Kadath or
Cool.
Stanley. I'll join. Yeah.
So you're all going back outside, back to the crypt, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm following Stanley anyway.
So you go to the crypt, which is quite an impressive stone entranceway, which then goes in and down. As you go down, it opens up into a room. It's relatively small, but completely empty.
Are there any recesses where coffins would go,
Yes, yeah,
but no coffins in any of them?
correct.
Is there any sign of the footprints we saw in the house? Are there any sign of the same footprints in the crypt?
No, but it's a lot more open to the elements, so you're not 100% sure if there would be or not.
Sure.
And do the numbers match up? As in, there's roughly the same number of recesses as there were coffins upstairs?
There might always be more.
There are more coffins than recesses. Yeah, it's not a large crypt at all.
If I may,
Nature is returning. The coffins are breeding.
if I may, the flashlight.
Happily hand it over.
I'm going to have a little look in each recess to see if there's anything at the back.
It would be like a storm lantern-y kind of thing, yeah. Yeah. You can spend some time searching the crypt thoroughly, but there's absolutely nothing in here. And that's probably where we'll draw it, team. Is a convenient stopping place, unless there's anything you specifically want to do quickly. But I suspect the next thing is either to continue searching the house or to head back, and I would rather stop here than halfway through either of those things.
Yeah.
That's
I think that
fine.
makes sense.
For the record, I'm
Sounds
definitely
good.
going to vote for carrying on searching the house now I hear.
Good,
We need
cool.
the sun go down before we go up to the upper floor and we'll see the way out.
It's late and scares. The coffins are quite good. But
Oh, suddenly it's the evening. Who knew? Who knew? Cool.
Look,
I want to go to the library, Adam. Damn it!
Cool. Right, we'll call it there. Thanks very much, everyone. And I will stop the stream here.